Hi, I'm Valerie Lucas, and I've been in Dr. Price's Anthropology 89 class this semester. Before this class, I understood how race affected our criminal justice systems and economic systems to a limited extent, but I think the vast scope of human rights violations and racial dominance were unknown to me. I think I also implicitly believe that racial classification was a natural human behavior, even though it's not. The biggest, most important lesson I've taken away from this class is that race is a social construct. Knowing that has completely reframed how I view it. Race is a story that we've been told and that we tell ourselves. Race was constructed by the white elite of the American colonies to prevent the white and black lower class from colluding and rising up against those white elite. Sometimes I wonder if they, the white elite, knew what they were doing. Did they intend the impact of their decision to reverberate throughout the centuries? And frankly, I don't think they would have cared. Their economic profits more valuable than human lives. After this, race was extremely useful as a justification for chattel slavery and exploitation after that practice ended. But I think that we have a very small part of this story and this history of race from our society and our history books. The second thing I've learned is that race was backed up with bad science for years. Pseudoscience. This includes some of your faves like Francis Galton, who invented some pretty good statistical methods to convince everyone else that people of color were inferior to white people. But also some less well-known people were convinced that cranial volume had something to do with intelligence, and that people of color had smaller brain sizes than white people, and that this made them intellectually inferior. Racism also crept its way into European philosophy, literature, and culture. Some of your faves, like Thomas Jefferson and Voltaire, enlightenedly reasoned their way into the conclusion that people of color were inherently inferior to white people. Thirdly, we have made race real by acting as though it is real. People of color in America, particularly black people, have been denied political rights and the protection of the state on the basis of race. They are underrepresented in social and political institutions. Race affects health outcomes, educational opportunities, and access to most other resources. Fourthly, race is persistent. America has tried to legislate change for racial equality several times, and we've had several movements for racial equality, namely the Reconstruction after the Civil War, the Civil Rights Movement, and arguably the Black Lives Matter movement of today. But even well-intentioned laws for equality fail in a society that is arguably racist at its foundation. Race is also an incredibly useful construct for people who benefit from it, white people. Any program or law that ignores the complexity of race will probably fail, even if its aim is to promote racial equality. Dr. Price has convinced me that any program would necessarily have to include an educational and dialectical component. Fifthly, finally, race is lived. People can find identity and community through their racial identities. People can go through a process to embrace their racial identity and identify with other members of their racial community. People who fully internalize and confirm their racial identity have healthy racial identities. So this class, Anthropology 89, has drastically shaped how I view race, and that's changed my thoughts, words, and actions. My thoughts have been most dramatically restructured. I now understand that race is a social construct, and that it has an incredibly complex and important history. My words are now going to change, so I'm going to explain race to other people and discuss race with other people in different ways that emphasize both the realness and the fakeness of race. And then finally, my actions are going to change. So because I've been given so much privilege and a system that was made for me, I've realized I need to listen more and gather more information and try to understand more. Thank you, Dr. Price, for teaching this class. Thank you for the rest of you for making it interesting. Not that Dr. Price didn't make it interesting, but for making it more interesting. Can't wait to see you guys around.